All right. Hello, everybody. We are going to get started in just 1 second. Let me get the screen shared here with you all. There we go. Perfect. That should be reflected now on your screen. So if you're listening, great. If you're watching, even better because you're going to see the screen, you're going to see the slides, and you're just going to get a little bit more info if you are seeing this. So that said, if you are driving and listening, just listen, come back to this another time and go ahead and watch that second time around. Now you will have this link. If you're receiving this link, feel free to share this with another mom who's been looking for answers for their child, another dad who's been asking for solutions and ways that he can help his family stay healthy and get healthy. Share it with the couple that's been trying to conceive. This information is it's starting to get out there, but it's just not as widely spread as we'd like it to be at this point, which is why you have me here on a Saturday afternoon doing this workshop with you. So my name is Dr. Stephanie Masick. I am the owner of Transform Chiropractic Wellness Center, one of the offices that works with PX docs. If you've seen all of this beautiful nervous system chiropractic, pediatric, and family chiropractic care just blow up, this is really where it stemmed from, is this PX doc platform. So check out YouTube. It's called PX docs, PXDOCS on YouTube. You can also look up the Experience Miracles podcast. That is literally speaking the same language that I'm speaking. And if you're wanting more information, there's other providers on there. This is not just chiropractors sharing this information. This is OTs, PTs, dentists. There's so many people in this realm sharing this information. There's OBs on there. There's midwives on there. There's doulas on there. So it's just good. It's good stuff, you guys. And again, what we're seeing with our culture in this day and age, we're seeing a lot of struggles with our kids. It's no surprise if you're here, you're probably trying to raise a healthy child. And why are some kids thriving and many more struggling with sickness, anxiety, inflammation? We call it the alphabet soup of everything nowadays, the ADHD, the OCD, the anxiety, the depression, the autism, right? All of these things, and I didn't even touch base on POTS and just nervous system dysregulation, sleep issues. The list goes on with what our kids are struggling with. And ultimately, what we want to do is give you guys just a clear path of where to start, where to go. Some of the questions are going to be, what do we do to prevent this? And then other things that we're going to talk through is really just how to get out of the storm if you're a little bit already in it. So this is just good information. If you're on live, go ahead, drop some questions in the chat or just say hi in the chat. That's fun too. Or turn on your screen if you want us to talk directly to you. But all that to say, we're gonna get started. So this is all about raising healthy kids naturally. Like I said, myself and Dr. Lucy are two of the team members in our office, in our location. We have offices all over the United States, all over the world now, and we are all collaborating constantly. And so that's what you get through us, is not just another chiropractor giving you their unique perspective. You're getting this collaboration. We get together multiple times a year to train and learn and develop our protocols for you and your kids. And so you're always in the best of hands. So we share a little bit of a different way to think about health. So we were told for so long that sickness and chronic illness is just normal. This is just how it is. Your kid probably just has some broken genes. There's something probably wrong, right? We probably got to surgically remove it or medicate it to make it better. That said, you're seeing, the ear infections, the constant slew of antibiotics, allergies, anxiety, ADHD. We talked about that list just a second ago. But what if none of that is actually normal? Healthy children should actually be resilient. They should be calm. They should be regulated. A calm child does not mean that that child is just sitting there with their hands folded, not talking, right? We know that a normal, healthy child is moving around and always wanting to touch things. So there's a normal amount of just child in that child. And so what we're not looking to do, a lot of people think regulated is this completely non-normal experience, but we're just so used to sick children and sick adults that that's become our window or what we see as health. And so we've really just lost this picture of what it actually is to be healthy. One of the things that we talk through is, what if it's not actually the germ? And so there's so many different understandings of the germ theory, the terrain theory, right? The terrain theory is that the body, its state is what actually allows for the person to get sick, rather than, hey, I was exposed to a germ, I automatically get sick. Think about it this way. When you grew up, there was always that one family member or friend maybe that would get sick. Everyone was in the same house, everyone was living the same life, eating the same foods, things like that. But that one person was always more, I would say, just subject to getting sick, right? You might also know somebody who's just like, man, they just got some bad luck, right? You think they're just getting sick all the time. That's just a bummer. It's probably just how they were wired, right? Literally is how they were wired. That said, it doesn't mean it cannot be addressed. That is a lack of resilience. And so everyone, we build health over time. And so we are building that resilience. So building healthy kids or raising healthy kids is really about building healthy nervous systems. So a lot of people, again, we come from this place where there's two big words at the top: salutogenesis, pathogenesis. The old model focuses largely on symptoms. So we wait for symptoms to appear. If symptoms are not there, we say, oh, we're healthy, right? Not necessarily true. We wait for symptoms, then we say, I'm sick if I have symptoms. We diagnose the symptoms, right? So you have this collection of symptoms, you have this disease, and we suppress said symptoms. We cut, we medicate, we treat, we numb, we shut down. We all know what that is. That is the medical system. There is no, this is not anti-medical. This is just saying we have to look at things from a bigger picture now. We do oftentimes need those diagnoses, but when we live in this place of the old model of the symptoms, we're playing symptom management versus what is actually building health. And so we have to, again, understand both. One of the chiropractors that raised me personally was shared a story of, we can have the firefighters come put out the fire. That's the medical system. But if you expect the firefighters to rebuild the house, put all the appliances back in, to really do all of that architecture work and all, that's not what they do. So we cannot expect our health to be built within the medical system when it's largely built to suppress, cut, medicate, treat, numb, shut down, right? That should be a temporary solution. And it's not even a solution, it should be a temporary band-aid while we ultimately look at, shift to the new model, what constitutes health for our children, right? The goal here is actually to strengthen the body's ability to heal and adapt. We shift the conversation from, do I have symptoms, to what is that symptom telling me? The focus becomes, how do I optimize my child's nervous system? How do I optimize their immune function? We're working with the body, we're listening to the body, we're using intuition. It's so much of a beautiful understanding of actually building health. So the new model is building a body that doesn't break down so easily. That's so important because in today's day and age, we can't control in many ways what our children are being exposed to. We can't control, every bit that goes into their mouths. You can't even see glyphosate for real. Red dye 40, right? We even think about it and we get sick. Not even mentioning the mold conversation. So we have to understand that it's okay to be exposed to these things, but it's the preparation that we take all the time, especially leading up to pregnancy, up to birth, after birth, right? Continuing to develop that over time, whatever age your child is, whatever age you are, that is so important that we're constantly choosing health because that's what continues to build it. And then when we encounter the challenge, whether that be a car accident or an injury in other forms, an exposure to a chemical, whatever it is, the more stability and the stronger your foundation is, the better you're going to handle that. That can even look like, for example, one of our patients last year, young child under the age of 2 needed open heart surgery. And in that case, chiropractic and working on the nervous system, what that did was not only help her through that and to heal faster, but to recover after. But also going into it, her body continually kind of defied all odds because she had that stability, because they had been getting her adjusted, but because they had been building health and building connection, and just wisdom, using that innate wisdom in her body and stimulating that constantly. And so there wasn't, hey, let's just wait and see, and then you're just holding on. It's like, let's build health and then expect that body to do the miracles that it knows how to do. So the hierarchy of development, we also call this the hierarchy of healing. So what this essentially is talking about is that foundation of health. If you come to see us, if you've been to a nervous system chiropractic office, you know we use a lot of triangles. And it's because it's just a really good way to understand how health is built. God ultimately designed things with order. Everything should be ordered, right? So when things are ordered and organized, things flow. Things flow smoothly. We can trust that everything is going to work out. So when we're building a house, for example, let's say the house is your brain or your body or your nervous system or your health. If the foundation is stressed, everything above it struggles. So many things that we're doing actively, sometimes we don't know that these things are happening, or we do know and we're trying to, control them and all the things. These things are affecting these foundational systems. And what we need to know is, are these foundational systems working, or are they working really, really poorly, which is impacting this top part of the pyramid? So most people come to us wanting all these improved speech, maybe better brain function, maybe improved decision making, decreased stress, anxiety, better social skills, behavior, emotional regulation, right? We're talking largely kids, right? So this can apply to adults as well. But everyone wants this brain-based healing at the top. They want the big stuff, right? But we have to look back and see, how did that develop though? How do we develop that? How is that created? That is the world of nervous system chiropractic, because we look at that from the very beginning, literally that moment of conception, honestly, even long before, 3 to 6 months before, when that couple is preparing to get pregnant, to make sure that they are helping and giving that baby the optimal conditions to thrive and start to build their nervous system, because that nervous system is built in utero. And then in those first 0 to 7 years, there's just so much that is happening as far as the building of the brain. And so we want to make sure that we're not trying to control or make perfect, right? That's actually more stress, but that we're optimizing, right? Optimizing is just choosing those basics, keeping things simple, and making sure that that foundation is not stressed, that that foundation is firm and strong, and it's a settled, flat foundation. That is what we want. So you will notice at the bottom, you'll see that central and autonomic nervous system. That's our core system. That's the first thing that forms. From that, it controls every organ, every tissue, every cell in the body, every system in the body. So it just expands, right? We have to look there first. What's so beautiful is our scans measure exactly that. The second layer is the motor system. When baby comes out of the womb, that's the first thing they say. Let's watch them grow. Let's watch them move. Let's watch them lift their head and latch and all these beautiful things. Eventually roll over, kind of start to push themselves up. How's tummy time? Is their core activating? Are they going from tummy to sitting eventually? Can they hold themselves up in that sitting posture, right? We're looking for that tone and that coordination to build. What's so beautiful about how God designed us too is that motor system then plays into, so motor development happening correctly is key to gut and immune development. And so when we look into your child's history, when we deep dive into your child's history, sometimes we do that multiple times throughout care. When we deep dive, we say, oh, you remember that motor delay that we had here? We got to kind of go back and work on that so that this can improve, right? Or for example, the motor system, you're not going to have improvements there. Your child might have that gross motor, fine motor struggle, or even maybe speech up here at the top, because they never really learned how to eat, sleep, poop in those early days of life. And so we have to kind of go back to those layers and really, really adjust or kind of fine tune how the nervous system is working there. So, like we just talked about, there is a foundation to our health. The autonomic nervous system, like we just talked about, it controls everything. So, when I say everything, I mean everything from sleep to digestion to immune function, behavior, mood, focus, energy levels. If the nervous system is stressed, the body can't regulate. And you guys, the nervous system is not just from the base of our neck up into our brain. It's largely our brain relies on this entire system. So the only reason that chiropractors care about the spine is because it's a neurological organ and it's the key neurological organ to brain health. And so again, we're not just talking brain. So if you're, thinking, oh, my kid needs, help with their brain, and you're thinking, how on earth is chiropractic going to help? Because the brain literally is connected to your nervous system, and your nervous system in your back, in your spine, is the direct superhighway to that brain. And so most brain issues are nervous system, they're neurospinal issues. And so we have to go back there. A lot of times people will think, oh, I need this because it's a mood issue or a focus issue. I'm going to go brain-based. I'm going to either get this medication to change the neurotransmitters in the brain, or I'm going to go and do this fancy fine-tuning neuro work, but we didn't start at the foundation. So this is, again, where it's so much more simple than we realize. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to hear. So we give this chart out in our office. If you ever come to one of our in-person workshops, we'll give you your own one of these. You get to take it home. If you want to see one, you can always message our office and we can get a link sent to you, or come on by our office and we can give you a paper one if that is helpful. So this fuse box, basically what it shows you is the areas of our signaling system and what it talks to. So for example, this upper neck area is so crucial for everything. Everything I listed here depends on health of that upper neck, because that is like air traffic control. We see what happens when air traffic control fails. That's what happens in our nervous system. And so there you have connections to your inner ear, your sinuses, your pituitary gland. That's largely related to sleep there. Brainstem, cerebellum, vagus nerve, the ENT system, vision, balance, and coordination. I'm gonna have to get some water here. So all of those things kind of tie together. So this picture right here, this is the gas versus brake chart. So a lot of our kids in this day and age, they're starting out life stuck on that gas pedal. So we see with that, if they're driving on the gas, they're not using the brake pedal. We're seeing poor digestion, poor healing, poor sleep, poor immune function. And what that stems from, again, when we talk about stress, there's multiple forms of that. So we have toxins, traumas, thoughts, all these different things, emotional stress, physical and chemical, that kind of add together. And the body has to adapt to those. And so when our kids are starting in this phase where they can't handle stress, it doesn't really matter what the stress coming in is doing. It's causing an already stressed body to kind of freak out more. Okay, so layer 2 is the motor system. So this is going back to that triangle. The motor system, our brains are built bottom up, back, forward over time. And so, like we talked about, that first layer is just that base layer of the nervous system. It's so key. From there, once that's healthy, our motor system can really start to take over. Then gut, then immune, then speech, social, behavioral, emotional, right? So if we understand that, if we understand that the function, which is largely any of the outputs, right? So digestive function, immune function, motor function, speech, social, behavioral, emotional, if that's altered, we have to look back at, well, what is being perceived? What's coming into the brain? That's the key. So symptoms are not the problem. The underlying nervous system dysregulation is the problem. And then back to this, a lot of people are coming in with children dealing with gut and immune system issues. I'm going to share a story of that here in a second. So the nervous system is the immune system. The brain is constantly telling immune cells when to activate, when to calm down, where should inflammation happen, when healing should begin. If the nervous system is dysregulated, the immune system can become either overactive, underactive, or confused. Overactive is going to be like your allergies, your autoimmune inflammation, things like that. Underactive is going to be frequent illness, even tumors, cancers, right? Chronic infections, or even just confused, right? Things like MCAS we're seeing nowadays, all sorts of challenges like that. All sorts, you can add in line like co-infect, all sorts of infections and issues in that realm. That's going to be more underactive, but confused can absolutely have some things like Lyme's disease and other struggles in there as well. Let's see. So chiropractic and the nervous system, how do these things fit in together, right? Because usually you'll see a chiropractor standing by a spine or they're holding a spine, and you're like, how on earth does that work? We always make the joke of if your nervous system was in your pinky toe, we would be the toe doctors, right? But we're the back doctors because, and we don't even like saying that, but we're the back doctors because your nervous system is housed in your neurospinal system. So focus on the neurospinal system for creating optimal health because that is your neurological superhighway. What chiropractic care does, this is just the simplest way to describe it, removes the interference to the normal and healthy function that we were all born with. So we just need to focus there. That's really all that it is. When stress happens, it leads to dysfunction or disconnection or interference. And so it's just blocking health. And so chiropractic care is going to open that back up, again, in many ways, help that repair. And then what we need to attend to too, we're not saying don't take red dye 40 out and this or that or remove the toxin, but that's not the only picture, right? Because the nervous system has been damaged and stressed and has interference, the quality of its function has decreased. We have to attend to that. And we also need to decide, hey, I'm not going to live in this moldy house. I'm going to remove these things so that we can continue to thrive and build health. So the sequence to building a healthy brain is literally what matters most. Sequence and order. So the health pillars, nervous system regulation has to be first. Why? Because that's how God designed our bodies to function. From the moment of conception, nervous system kicks in. That is the core coordinator and regulator. That is our connection. Okay. Then sleep, rest, eating well, clean foods, clean waters, please filter your water. Like these are just things that we need to be doing. Exercise, play, movement, right? We don't need these fancy trinkets for our kids. We just need to get them outdoors. We need to get them playing, using their brains in a creative way, getting off of technology, not having them sit over a phone for a long time, right? Ideally, we just keep those out of the way for as long as possible. And then using our extra credit, which is the boosters and builders. That's going to be your supplements. But notice that's number 2. That's not number 1. That should not come before number 1. So those are there for extra credit. Using immune fighters when necessary. So we send this chart out to all of you. We give this out in our office all the time. But when these things happen, right? Because we know they're going to happen. We're gonna encounter a sore throat, a scratchy throat, fevers, cough, sinus congestion, flu, right? Ear infections. These are things that we need to have just prepared. It's like your natural medicine cabinet. We want to build that natural medicine cabinet and know how to attend to them so that when a fever happens for your child and your child needs that fever to happen, you know, I'm going to grab my apple cider vinegar compress or throw them in the bath and just dilute some of that, maybe with a couple drops of lavender in there to just support their body, right? We don't want to stop it. We're not the kind of people that are throwing Tylenol on those things because we know that the body is building health and it's doing that through the expression of these symptoms. We don't want to just stuff those down. So it's super important to know that. Ear infections, the protocol for ear infections is get the drainage and the signaling happening. That's the connection and the structure. That's chiropractic care. Then it is the medical system says, watch and wait. Do not throw antibiotics on those right away. That is not how to attend to ear infections. We want to help the body unwind that. Ear infections are going to be a nuke to the entire immune system. And so it's really good, you guys, to have these things at home, right? Have these things at home. know when to call in, come in for that boost adjustment so that you can get your child moving through these seasons with ease. So when parents come to see us, we hear this statement already. We've tried everything already. This happens usually over the phone, right? We've tried everything. How is this different than what maybe the chiropractor we've already tried, or the functional medicine doctor we've already tried, or we did OT, we did PT, we did speech, we did parasite cleanses and therapies and all of the things, right? This is the exhausted brain from doing everything. The problem is this: none of this has ever addressed the foundational issues in the nervous system. Yes, even OT, PT, and speech. Yes, those things do affect the nervous system, but they don't take out that interference. That's where chiropractic comes in. It removes the interference and reconnects the brain to the body, right? And so that signaling can start to improve. So then something like OT, PT, speech, therapy, whatever it is, detoxes, supplements, can actually do their job, right? So the missing piece for so many kids nowadays is literally the nervous system. Again, chiropractic care. The missing piece is the nervous system. These can all work better if they're actually needed once the nervous system starts regulating and the body starts healing. When the brain is no longer stuck in that stress mode, battle, tight, protection, we call that fight or flight, we're able to learn, we're able to grow. So if your child is in OT, PT, speech, therapies, whatever, they need to have a regulated nervous system to go into that and actually store that information. So in many cases, we're seeing a lot of plateaus in learning and not a lot of developmental kind of jumps or leaps because we're so stuck in protection. We're not actually gathering that info and keeping it there. Same with supplements. We're basically throwing fuel on an already burning fire, and we're just throwing money down the toilet at that point because you're on 30 supplements. Your body doesn't even know how to consume real food in its natural form, like dairy, right? And so your body just cannot handle all of that information. That's like in a supplement that has 5 different things in it, that's like 5 separate directions. That's like telling putting a supplement with 5 separate directions in it is like you telling your husbands we love you, but it's like you telling your husband to go to the grocery store and get these 500 things and not giving him a list to do that, right? That's a problem, right? He's going to come back with one thing, maybe not even come back, right? All that to say, we have to provide these things to an organized nervous system, not a stress mode nervous system. So this mom is she's wonderful. If you've come to our workshop, she's probably been there telling her story. But she came to us just completely exhausted from trying everything for her son. She's got 5 kids, and he was just always the one who was struggling. Early on, he was born. He had some respiratory distress. This is a home birth and family, like, crunchy as can be. He had difficulty focusing later on in life, fine motor challenges, just constantly in and out of urgent care. And this was the kid who just always caught the severe sickness, that kid that I was talking about earlier. And Tomasi, he just was on the struggle bus, and they had tried everything. They had tried everything. And when they finally found us, we looked at scans. As we do for everyone, we want to see what's going on in his body. How is his nervous system adapting to stress? Where is there that tension? What's going on? And so what you'll notice on this left scan, this is a thermal scan, so it's largely based on heat. I'm just going to point out the one area. T3 has a lot to do with the lungs. So he had some really key issues in regulating and signaling to the lungs, the heart, and really just core regions that would help him to detox and move a lot of that fluid through. So he had some pretty significant issues there. If we look at this scan off to the right, this is the motor, or think of that like muscular system. So when we're talking about movement of the immune system, we need our brain to be responding with coordination and ease. And so this black outline, you'll see where that kind of tucks in towards this yellow area on both sides. See where these arrows are pointing? That's that same area right there where his nervous system had a lot of chaotic pulls back and forth in tension. And so we call that just a tension pattern. His body wasn't letting go of that tension pattern. And so what's so beautiful now is They no medication, no supplement, nothing would affect the underlying distress. He's now a healthy, thriving, focused young man. He's thriving in school. He's thriving in sports. He even had a situation. He's been getting adjusted for now 2 years with us. He's had a situation where he broke his entire jaw. Some kid on his hockey team ran into him very, very hard and had a complete break on both sides, and he wasn't able to, they didn't want to wire his mouth closed, but they said, okay, if you're just going to drink soft fluids, right, for the next, I think, 12 weeks, they foresaw 12 weeks for his healing. He healed in 5. So with chiropractic care, he did not stop getting adjusted. We used a lighter force adjusting at that time to stimulate his body's natural healing process, and he was able to heal in half the time. And the doctors were just completely amazed, which was so fun. So this story is very intense too. This is another young adult here. So Miss Kayla, early on in life, well, her mom found us ultimately on social media, and her mom explained her story. She started out in the NICU. It was I would say a normal birth, no induction. She started going into labor, ended up, as she was coming out, inhaled some meconium. So there was a NICU stay for 24 hours. Mom didn't get to hold her for a while. Enter reflux, meds for reflux, just kind of going down this rabbit hole, recurrent ear infections, which led to ear tubes. She had some apnea early on, which led to getting the tonsils out. She had constipation that started around that time. And ultimately, because of that constipation, she started experiencing anxiety. And that anxiety led to panic attacks. So that family went for meds, surgeries. They had the tonsillectomy, right? The OT therapy. They had tried literally everything, right? We say that because most moms and dads have tried everything for their children. And Kayla, at the time that she came in, was on a pretty strong medication for anxiety. But mom and dad were really seeking, why is this happening? Can we improve her health? We want her to thrive. We want her to be able to enjoy school. It was affecting her relationships and friendships and being able to go to school and sports. She just couldn't even leave mom's side. And so that high anxiety and panic attacks just ruled the entire family's life. And these were Kayla's initial scans here. Just what you're noticing here is a lot of tension in the neck, very little tension, actually low tension there, and then high tension here. So what you're noticing is anywhere there's color is noisy brain input. So her whole body was stuck in fight or flight. And then if you look off to the right here, Kayla had some really significant upper neck interference, which was inhibiting her brake pedal from doing its job. And if we remember back to that gas versus brake, the brake pedal is really what coordinates immune function. So her history there coordinates drainage from the ears, the sinuses, that, but also regulates the entire body and helps us to feel safe in the environment. And she couldn't use that. And so Kayla is able to now, she actually, this last summer, she went to summer camp all by herself. Her mom was actually more stressed than she was going to that. And Kayla's thriving. She's staying healthy. Her immune system is strong. She's happy. She's healthy. She's playing sports. And she's able to just live life as a young girl without fear of those panic attacks, without fear of just feeling that constant anxiety. So Kayla is absolutely thriving. Zeke, I love Zeke's story. Zeke's mom is actually, she's a nurse, and she came to us because she had seen a lot of these stories that we had shared. And she had some mild concerns for him, mostly largely related to the fact that he was walking sideways. Zeke is 2, and he was walking sideways when he came to us. He could not walk straight. So he was having some pretty significant, grandiose motor issues. And we went back to his birth. We talked through pregnancy. We talked through birth. He didn't really have any, weird positional issues in utero, but he did have a need to use the vacuum extraction at birth because he got stuck. And when that happens, what it does is it adds just this torque and tension and stress in our neck. You can see that via Zeke's scans here. And the same areas that cause coordination, vestibular, interacting with the environment and coordinating all that vision, coordination, movement patterns also coordinates the immune system. And if we remember back to the triangle that we shared, those 2 areas then lead to that brain-based top part of the pyramid. So he was starting to hit emotional development, and those foundational issues had never solidified. I'm getting a little bit of a cough here. And so with Zeke's first scan, this is the first scan on the left, you'll notice his last scan in his initial phase of care was significantly decreased in terms of the overall interference. So way less red, just more mild interference. And so we're still working through a lot of that. You'll notice here in our office, kids can get adjusted in whatever way, shape, or form they want to. And so it's really all about meeting your child where they're at and allowing their nervous system to show us what they need. And so in many ways, Zeke's adjustments would be standing, would be walking around the office. It would not be what you think of coming to the chiropractor. My kid's got to be perfect. How on earth are they going to get adjusted? It always makes us laugh because your kids will do far better than you think just by coming in, because we work with all sorts of kids and challenges. So there are two kinds of parents nowadays. Parent A, this is the parent that waits for symptoms and then asks, what medication do I use to treat this? How do I just stuff this down? Kind of get rid of it? And parent B is the kind that proactively helps to build health and resilience because they want their child to thrive in the long term. They don't just want to stuff down. They don't just want to numb. They want their children to thrive, whether that be in school, whether that be in sports, whether that be, hey, way down the line in life. They want their child to grow up healthy and experience life to the fullest. That is parent B. I know I want to be parent B. I hope you want to be parent B, because this is what we're seeing nowadays, is a need for more of those parents that are seeking out the true root cause. So what's next? If you're watching this webinar, maybe after it's come out, we have to start with the nervous system. We do need to stock up and be prepared to handle stress, right? That's looking at that extra credit, right? The next step is scheduling a consultation. So if you are not already with us in our office or working with a PX doc chiropractor, I highly recommend that you give one of us a call and schedule a consultation to deep dive into your child or your story and look at nervous system scans. Ultimately, then we can look at what do we need to do to get you to your goal. Maybe that's no constipation. Maybe that's I want completely off of these meds. Maybe that is I want my child's immune system to actually work properly and not have to worry about missing a family vacation or not being able to go to school. Hey, I've got a job, my husband's got a job, we can't be having this many sick days, right? This is what we want to know. What are your goals? Because your goals are more important than our goals for you. We want to root out what you're actually seeking. And number 5 is that the miracle that you're seeking. That is what we're all about, is expecting and experiencing those miracles here at Transform Chiropractic. So if you're watching this, or maybe if you're a current patient and you've sent this to a friend, or you see this now and you want to share this with a friend, by all means, send this link to a friend who has a child who's struggling with something that we've talked about tonight, or really just want to dive in. They're getting no answers from the medical system. Everything looks normal. All the tests are coming back normal. They're saying they're blaming it on genetics. Whatever it is, get scanned. Get scanned. Give us a call. Get that scheduled. If you're watching this, you can access this one-time webinar discount of the 50% off the initial consultation and scans. This will not last. We offer this only when we put out webinars. And then we also add an additional $100 off your child's personalized care plan. This is so key to getting them there. If you are watching this, scan this QR code. You can actually go and schedule a time, and one of our team members will give you a call to get that confirmed and just get to know you and make sure that you're a good fit for this type of care. So if you are on with us, we have a few questions we want to go through and answer, but go ahead and ask any questions that you have. Let's see here. So the first question that was submitted is, what if my child is healthy? Do they need chiropractic care? And that's such a good question, because ultimately we need to go back to, like, what is health? Because if you're saying your child is healthy, are we just basing that off of, do they have symptoms? But if we look at scans, we're going to learn a lot more about what's going on. Now, there's very few people that I've had nowadays that come in and they have near perfect health. There's very, very, very few people. What we have to almost reframe with a child that maybe, hey, I don't have a major concern like regulation, or they're having behavioral issues, or they're struggling to focus, or this or that. Maybe you don't have any of those concerns. Maybe they're pooping normally, kind of like some of those key things in the symptom pathways are great. But what we would want to know is, okay, so then our focus is helping them build health, right? Our focus is helping them build and navigate this world by building a healthy nervous system, right? And so ultimately, we have to go back to their story. We have to go back to their birth. We have to look at scans to see, is there any interference? Because even with kids are very resilient. They're very adaptable. They'll form what we call compensations. And so if a child is not showing symptoms, sometimes if we see issues on scans, it's because their body is so wise and their body is kind of tweaking things to compensate. And so they'll almost seem as if everything is fine. An example I give is we have an athlete who plays for a pretty high level hockey team here in Minnesota. And we were talking through his case, and he just brought up, hey, when I was a child, I was super clumsy. So he was really, really clumsy, but he's a high level athlete. How does that work together? Because he's found ways to just compensate and overcome those clumsy issues off ice by putting on a pair of skates. And so this is something that's super important to know is we're not trying to fix anything about him. We're trying to optimize his nervous system so he can not only prevent injury, that he can stay as healthy as can be throughout the season, that his immune system stays healthy, that he recovers properly, that he gets good sleep, that his energy levels are optimal. We want this kid, his goal is to play in the Olympics. And so chiropractic care is one of the best things to optimize performance for him. So the next question is I have PCOS. How do I help my daughter so that she does not get it? Because I've heard that it can be genetic. Let's talk about that a little bit. So genetics are interesting. So there's actually a new field called epigenetics that's far more actually truthful. So genes load the gun. They don't pull the trigger. Okay. So blaming everything on genetics is the less empowered thing to do. That is saying I don't have control over my choices, my health, all those things. Epigenetics says I can entirely adapt and change and shift that. It doesn't matter what genes someone gave me. I can actually choose which genes are expressed and which are not, right? So we actually have a lot more core, I would say, choice in that than we realize, or that the medical system will tell us. And so for in that example is like by you choosing to maybe as mom or dad get under care and really shift how you're living, maybe start eating completely differently than you did as a child. Maybe you create a healthier home emotionally. You create just more emotional stability. You have more emotional regulation. You co-regulate with your daughter. You just really attend to her needs, making sure she feels heard and listened to. Those are all really key things to, again, decrease stress, right? This is also why we call our offices just family offices, because it's so key that families get adjusted together because we are interacting together. And when we co-regulate with healthy people, we continue to heal and grow and thrive. And so that's something that can be really helpful for you as well. I'm going to come back out of this and see if we have any other questions. So the next question is, how do we prevent a lot of those challenges? So based on maybe the stories that I shared, that question is off of, what can my husband and I do prepare for pregnancy or just to even prevent some of that? So the key is preparing for pregnancy. So every pregnancy, we should be preparing for at least 3 months, at least 90 days. For women, it should be about 6 months. So we should be preparing for 6 months at least to just restore our nourishment, to rest, to recalibrate, to ultimately just prepare the healthiest environment possible to then bring life into. And so the key is really getting both of you healthy. And so at our office, we actually have something called a fertility program, and we walk couples through how to rebuild, how to stabilize. And so we have numerous couples who are under care together. And so many pregnancies, couples that have come from other chiropractors or even other just systems, other doctors, and that have not found solutions and that have gotten pregnant over the last couple of weeks, if not months. And it's just been a tremendous journey. So we then get to walk through pregnancy with them, right? So it's optimizing every step of the way. Every season is going to look a little bit different. And so that's where you also really, really want individualized approach to health, right? That's making sure we're dialed in nutritionally. Are we eating enough? Are we getting enough water, right? Are we getting enough rest? But then in addition to that, are we actively, taking steps to be well? Are we creating and building health for ourselves, right? Because that's also going to bleed into our offspring. And so that in many ways, in our opinion, that is getting adjusted because it's going to optimize and create the healthiest environment possible for your child. So I look at any couples that come to us and we're struggling with fertility, whatever, it is the best time to shift your life because if you're trying to conceive a child and you're just super stressed about it, that stress is not going to go away once you're pregnant. That stress just manifests and gets worse and worse and worse. But if you're able to step back and really see this is a time to rebuild, this is a time to create stability, this is a time to heal, you're going to go into that pregnancy with just far less stress, far more capacity and resilience. And so, in that case, you even going into parenthood and parenting and that postpartum time, you just have so much more capacity to handle stress. And it's just a much more beautiful experience. And so, that is really key, preparing for pregnancy and then going through pregnancy with chiropractic care, nervous system focused chiropractic care, birth, coming back from birth saying, okay, maybe it wasn't exactly the way I wanted it. Maybe it was perfect. Maybe it was ideal. And then making sure that you are checking to see, is baby's nervous system starting out well? And that is ultimately the key to building healthy and resilient kiddos. So that is all the questions that I have for on here live. We're going to hold more workshops. So have not, if you've not yet signed up for a new patient scan or just even want to book a phone consult, please do call the office. We highly recommend getting in for that new patient exam. You did get the offer if you've watched this workshop. So do that. That will not last. You've got to call ASAP. It's time to make a change for your child. Otherwise, again, give us a call, shoot us an email, shoot us a text, respond to this webinar if you have more questions. We're happy to answer any questions that you guys have. Thanks, everybody.